Blessed day, soul family. Welcome back. Martial Mystic Calendar Series 2026. And I just want to start off by saying I subscribe to the idea that Earth is a place of learning. And as such, we are we find ourselves amongst one another in this place I call Earth School. And what I found was that this idea, philosophy was helpful to get through problematic instances, get through my own stubbornness, and be able to move on with lightness, with clarity, and to be more mindful and to not bring things from the past too much. So, that's one of the fundamental pillars of conflict resolution and why I've delved into conflict resolution from my background in martial arts, right? Understanding now in my 40s from doing martial arts since I was around 10 years old that martial arts is a conflict dispute resolution system. And when you are faced with matters of survival and life and death, um, people get on guard, people get triggered, not in the sense of triggered as we use the word today, but ready, alert, if not anxious or fearful. So, where are we going and what's the balance and what's the vision? That's why in 2025 and coming into 2026, unity consciousness was one of the third pillars, along with mental health, right? So, three core ideas we're talking about in 2026 in this calendar series. Um, this just goes based on my observation of my life, myself, and then the world around. So, for 2026, based on how the conversation's going, I'm thinking the mask, a dropping of the mask, or the veil is going to be maybe another topic going into next year, or maybe even the second half of this year. I'm not sure. So I may do a series, something like that. That just provides the context for what we're going into today. So if you if you are new to this series or this channel, then you don't know that we apply Qigong principles, Tai Chi principles, these philosophies and skills of Eastern thought, Eastern philosophy, tradition, culture. From that culture comes a lot of experience. From that experience comes a lot of knowledge. And then from that knowledge and experience becomes an innate intelligence. This is the history of the East. We have a history of the West here, a few hundred years. The history of the East goes back thousands of years. And this is, I'm not an expert on this. I'm not a historian. And I would love more information because this is a school of learning, and this is a learning exercise. This isn't a lecture per se, but an engagement and a process of exchanging of ideas and then learning from one another for progress, improvement, and for harmony and coexistence. So that's the Tai Chi aspect, is the harmony. That's the Tao aspect, the way, doing without doing, regulating without regulating, finding a way without calling it a way, finding a structure, a way, idea, or principle without enforcing dogma or rigid rules. And then that brings in the aspects of morality. So with this Eastern thought, religion, not religion, but with this Eastern thought, philosophy, and lifestyle, The question is how deep can it take us? How deep can it go? How far does it reach into aspects of everyday life? Can we take Eastern principles into everyday life and implement them in an effective way? And this is founded upon my practice, my training, my study with my teacher in his 10-year discipleship program, Dr. Yang. Always search for the deeper feeling. So if you have a movement, if you have a form, you have an exercise, you have a practice, always search for a deeper feeling. What does that mean? Well, there's many things to it. Five regulations: body, breath, mind, chi, spirit. There's also the embodiment, the nervous system experience, and the utilization of a movement or a skill or a technique, and the ability to see a context, a situation, and utilize a skill, a philosophy, or idea. All that comes from experience and working with the content, information, knowledge, and that intelligence. Previously, I was talking with someone who made the comment to me, yeah, people are finding that when it comes to medical interventions or medical procedures, that utilizing the strategies of the from the East, like Tai Chi, Qigong, other movement practices and meditation practices, that the Western approach, the Western strategies, and I just used the word, but it escapes me now. That there's a good chance of mitigating pain and also facilitating healing from the procedures. That's the word, procedures. And the word that they used was Qigong. Using Qigong when there's Western procedures is beneficial and helpful. So you may have found that out in your own personal life. I found a lot of people have, but I also know that there's a lot of people that haven't been exposed to that idea and that concept. So that's something I also want to speak to as well. What are the principles that allow for that harmony or that coexistence of East and West? Well, firstly, the East and West, or the East, told us that there is a yin dimension and a yang dimension. There's a dimension that we see and that we cannot see. So, within the context of medical procedure here, what we're talking about is something along the lines of what my teacher often describes as this process of the energy in dissonance or destabilizing, and then the energy influencing the cells of a particular area, and then those cells influencing the tissues, and then the tissues influencing the body, and finally you have a manifestation that has that has risen in the body, pain. So a lot of times people will go to their doctors and say, gosh, I have this feeling, or gosh, I have this pain. And the doctor can't necessarily see it or detect it based on the tests until finally something ruptures, something explodes, something breaks. Um, but what people have found was that there seems to be this building, if you will, this building of feeling, experience, pain, until it's like, gosh, I got to go to the emergency room. Okay, well, now that you're in the emergency room, yeah, we can see that it's, finally burst open or ruptured, what have you. And they're like, well, gosh, I've had this pain for so long. So there is a conundrum in this case where there are unseen forces that are available to our other senses. Those are our feeling senses. And so back to the concept of nature Gong Fu, the Gong Fu of internal vision, then we have to be the ones. My teacher would always say, Dr. Yang would say, you're the only one who knows what's best for your body, or you're the only one who can know your body the best. right? So you can get all these tests and whatnot, but you're the one that can speak to, and that's what we're talking about today is relationship and the message, the communication, and the exchange of ideas and the back and forth. What does this have to do with Resolution Thursday? It's also our social growing pains, the interacting with one another and the pain of that, but the unseen relationship that gets built and the opportunity, if we don't see the opportunity to build relationship. Otherwise, we do these harmful things, whether it's to ourselves or to one another, where we isolate or eliminate, cut it out, whether we're cutting someone out or cutting out a piece of the body, because for some reason the relationship has fallen away, has severed, and the illness and disease has started to grow. Remember, if the chi can't flow, disease and illness can grow. So we take that from the small universe, the individual pain, right? Chinese told us that the small universe, uh, it is the human body, and that is that consists of a whole bunch of small universes within the large universe. So this image, even though it's blurry, gives us the idea, right? So heaven up in the sky, earth down below, human in the middle. Sansai, uh, the well, actually Sanbao. Mm, yeah, I need more clarity on this, but it's a three powers concept. Cosmologically, heaven, man, earth is the three powers within the large universe, and within the small universe, the three powers, the large three powers are reflected. The upper Dantian, heaven, middle Dantian, humanity and humanity, and earth down in the lower Dantian. Okay. So really key and important points because it takes us from the macro to the micro to the macro to give us our social growing pains and then our personal development within society. Again, we're talking about also dropping of the mask. So feeling, building relationship about, what your cohort or what your peer group thinks about what you think about or what you say, and then how you're judged. And so you have an element of the mask that can keep us safe and keep us operating smoothly within society. But also sometimes we have to go against the grain. We have to dissent. How does that work? How do we approach that and engage and speak to our truth, and then also speak to and speak out when we need to speak out? So this is how Qigong and conflict resolution overlap and intersect, because Qigong is all about the quality of energy and quantity of energy. And as mentioned yesterday in Wellness Wednesday, what strategies we take to produce a yang environment or a yin environment. We call that in Qigong Kan and Li method. Kan is water to cool down a fire, Li, fire to give heat when needed. You go for a run, or you walk, or you do qigong, or what have you. You inflame the body. You build heat because heat is important for the metabolic processes for the body. But you can't do too much. If you do too much, you break down the body. So you often also have to apply some water and do some stretching, some recovery exercises. So fire and water, Kan and Li, to produce yin and yang effects. This is what we say in Qigong. With that and through that, then in terms of the communication and relationship, then you build a connection and establish a two-way connection to exchange information, pass messages back and forth. Hey, body, did I, go too hard yesterday? Gosh, that's why I might be sore today, right? Or my wrist or my knee, I've been using a mouse for too long and my hand's starting to give me some information that my hand is taking the brunt of all the work from using a mouse for too long and not giving it diverse movement. What do? I don't cut my hand off, right? Which is what we do in the social landscape. If someone is the problem or we see someone, if we perceive someone or a population as being a problem, we just want to eliminate them, get them out of the way, right? So we can go about our day feeling good. Witch hunts, right? But we're learning. We've learned from that. But we still haven't been able to fully resolve this within the human condition and teach one another how to coexist and sustain harmony, especially in the West, going back to East and West ideas and concepts. This is where the East can help us. This is where the philosophies of the East can help us. We talked about in Tai Chi Tuesday, I think, how yes, we are animals and we can be animalistic and it can be survival or feel like survival of the fittest. However, we also have rational brains, we have higher intelligence, and we have higher emotional states and emotional intelligence, right? But we do also have conflict. Conflict is inevitable, and that's what we learn in Resolution Thursdays. And it helps us it helps us to articulate the prayer for fearful. Gosh, I keep saying fearful Friday. It's fearless Friday. The resolution Thursday gives us the context and the articulation to for the prayer for fearless Friday because conflict is painful. Conflict is scary. You acquire a knee injury, a shoulder injury, a neck injury, a back injury, and you are afraid. It is just part of the journey. You become afraid. What if this? What if that? Catastrophizing. And in the same way, we do the same thing in the social landscape as well. We see kids shooting up their schools. We see people ramming their cars. We see people taking to the streets. We see people dying in the streets. We see people's land getting taken away. We see now AI intelligence coming up. We see loss of jobs, and that scares us. That's the truth. Drop the mask. That's scary. You might lose your job. How are you going to make money? How is the economy going to grow? What is this AI thing? Do we put all of our chips in the AI basket? And who is and why? And are they the ones running the world? Or the country at least. So we live in a world of dispute. Dispute is the nature of the world. Conflict is the nature of the world. And that's why I started this with I take, based on my observation, the stance that Earth is a school and we are here to learn. And we can give each other some grace and space and exchange ideas for learning. Holding people accountable and learning at the same time. For example, you have an issue in the body, right? The clash. Your knees yelling at you. Your back, your neck is yelling at you, right? What are you going to do? You yell back at your body? Do you talk mess to your body? Do you degrade your body in the same way if someone came to you and said, "I'm hungry," or "I don't know," or "Why?" or "You took my parking spot," or I'm competing and applying for that job position and description as well. Or I'm going to open up a business. Why are you opening up this business? So the concept of not killing the messenger is engaging and exchanging. Someone recently told me because I co-founded a local business and said, "Do you really think that this town needs another yoga studio?" So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I could see where they stand." You know, and at the same time, that's very telling. I want to take that message on. I don't want to yell at them back, but I want to take the message on to understand where they're coming from and what their stance is. Okay? Because there might be other people like that. All right? And then we can talk about, what decisions we make in regards to business and stuff. But the relationship is key. And the relationship is where we're missing and where we're lacking. Why does conflict, persist? Because we do the process of elimination. We remove what the perceived problem is without communicating with it. In Qigong, that's exactly the opposite. In Qigong, we take on the pain. We get into the body and we engage with it and we try to understand the message because Eastern thought tells us that the problem and even the strategy to overcome the problem is within the message of the pain. So Qigong, even yoga and these other movement-based somatic exercises are going to give us the opportunity to resolve the inner conflict. From there, we get then the platform, the even the experience and the embodiment to apply that to the interpersonal realm. When there's conflict, amongst people. Currently, right now, in my local community, man, and I don't know if it's spring, if it's the upwelling of energy, but when you encounter and interact more and more, you rub elbows, you have rifts, and you have some earthquakes, you have some storms that you have to weather. You need a good philosophy, theory, understanding to know that conflict's inevitable and that and how to navigate that and deploy strategies to live amongst the soul family, right? So that is what I want to leave for you today. The healing component, the medical qigong aspect, and then also the conflict resolution system. So here as well, you see medical qigong and martial qigong overlapping because martial qigong gives us the theory of yin and yang, right? The theory of yin and yang and the Tao is it tells us that the illusion that there's an illusion of separateness, but we are all one, we're all together, and we are all a soul family. And if we can remain in that consciousness and take ourselves back to that consciousness, and understand that we are like Thich Nhat Hanh said, interdependent, and that we co-create and we collaborate, then that harmonizes and parallels with Qigong philosophy, yin yang exchange, and relationship building and development for prevention of conflict, mitigation of conflict, stability, and harmony. So let me know what you think. Let me know what your thoughts are. In closing, I'm going to leave you with this that came to mind in terms of what the current social pains are and messages are. Thought this was a good example of what we're dealing with in society. Then the question would be, how do we employ the strategies that I just laid out?
Everyone building robotics. And he said to me, he goes, Steve,
He talks about he founded a business and he has a co-founder, and he just went to the offices and to the warehouses to see how business was improving and progressing.
the robot pieces have been here for decades. We've always had them. What we've been missing, and the expensive part, was the intelligence. And he toured me through this 40,000 square feet building called Think down in San Francisco. And I saw a robot cooking with a robot arm making food. I saw a robot making perfume for you, whatever perfume you wanted, this big machine that just makes it for you. And he says, because we've got intelligence and we've always had the machinery, there's going to be this huge explosion of robotics that we've always been waiting for. Intelligence was the missing piece. And now he says it costs pennies. And everyone there is building not software anymore, they're all building robotics. And so for me, I was like, wow, the future is going to look very, very different, I think, in short order than the past. And I'm just a realist. I'm not trying to be pessimistic or optimistic. I think there's truth on both sides. But Kevin, do you acknowledge that the jobs that we have today, in large part, are going to go away?
Yeah, I don't think shaking a perfume bottle is a great job for anybody, but I do think, and I'll give you two examples because maybe you're right about Elon. He doesn't get a big chunk of his stock unless he populates Mars with 1 million people. NASA announced 6 hours ago that they're going to put a permanent plant there on the moon, an established base on the moon. Can you
So you see the formulation, articulation of the problem, but then you see his response. I think it's Kevin. Yeah, Kevin O'Leary. And this is a debate with also Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. Interesting development. It's only like a few hours old, but it came on my algorithm, and I thought it was an interesting juxtaposition. I don't necessarily take sides, what have you, because as a mediator, we want to be omnipartial, but we want to see how people argue or debate their positions or opinions. And, is it substantial, is what we would say in Tai Chi? Does it have value? So again, Resolution Thursday, the societal pains and our development and relationship, right? Do we drop the mask or do we have to sustain the mask? When is it comfortable to drop the mask? Blessed day, everyone. Embrace the woo and may your chi flow